My guest for today is the Global Artistic and Business Director of John Paul Mitchell Systems. He is also the proud owner of a Robert Cromeans Salon and Walkin Salon by Robert Cromeans. My guest for today is, of course, Robert Cromeans. How are you today?
I am fabulous. Just a great honor. When you asked if I could do it, I said, yes, please. I've been very fortunate for a number of years to be considered a voice for the beauty industry, helping people. I wouldn't say like there's so many talented hairdressers, but I've kind of always used hair as a vehicle to talk about business, philosophy, lifestyle. And, it's having a conversation with the beauty industry. I love it every single chance I get the opportunity. And especially with your network having such a powerful reach, I jumped at the chance, jumped at it.
Yeah.
I've got one little thing going on here I have to adjust, Colie. Maybe I have something on my screen that's blocking my viewpoint. It's continuing. I was on mute.
I don't know why.
That's okay.
Maybe just pick up. Is that okay? Sorry.
There you go. I'm back in.
Good. Excellent.
Perfect.
All right. So just a few questions for you today. I'm so excited. We're going to get into a little bit about like your background and your life and then how you kind of got into the industry. So where are you originally from?
Well, I'm actually Scottish. I've been here for a number of years now. I think, I don't know, 35. So my accent comes and goes. When I drink, it comes in real strong. Paul Mitchell was a Scotsman. And when it comes to my real beginning, I didn't go to hair school till I was 24. I went to hair school in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm probably in school for 3 months, Colie, and they pop in a VHS tape. For you guys listening right now, a VH tape is the way we used to watch stuff. And it told me the story about this incredible hairdresser, Paul Mitchell, that had heritage through Vidal Sassoon and many other things. But Paul Mitchell was a showman. For example, as I'm watching him cut hair, he would use curved scissors. He used a curved comb. He used to do a magnetic set on hair, take out the rollers before the show when the hair was dry, and then he'd blow up balloons where the rollers were and come out on stage and pop the balloons. He was a man that spoke his mind. He had a beautiful sense of humor and such a control of an audience, but he was the ultimate platform artist. Another trick that he taught me as a very young man was how to work and talk, because a lot of hairdressers like to talk and then work. But Paul had a beautiful way of making like a head just come out of his body, keeping an audience engaged with action, which is what hairdressers love to see. And I would just say being Robert Cromeans has been an evolution of something I found out when I knew nothing. I made a decision to join Paul Mitchell. So even in beauty school, I was teaching small classes. At the time we had 5 products. I think today we have 500. But Paul has been a huge influence in my life, and I actually had the opportunity to eventually work with him. So that's the power of seeing somebody from a distance, and then suddenly one day you're on a platform with the guy. And it was almost like for me meeting Jesus Christ in a way. I don't mean to be sacrilegious, but he had such a profound effect on me. And, for the last 40 years, Paul Mitchell's been doing incredible things for the beauty industry. And for the last 35 years, I've been affiliated with Paul Mitchell, the company. And every dream I've had when I thought I'd go into beauty school, what I thought I was going to be doing, to the reality of what I've gotten to do. I was in Israel last year. I've been to the Wailing Wall. I've been to Jerusalem. I've been all over the Asian market. Every dream you could ever have as a person has come true because I joined a company when I knew nothing. My mom once asked me after a show, did you ever imagine, Robert, and again, in a very heavy Scottish accent, as a wee boy, did you ever imagine you'd be traveling the world, people want to take your pictures, you'd be working with beautiful models? I said, Mom, as a wee boy, that's all I imagined. So this is a beautiful industry that any dream you have, regardless of your skin color, your education, your accent, this is something that people can really thrive on. And that's the beautiful part that I love being part of the beauty industry. All I did to get part of this equation was I got a license like many of your listeners right now, and it changed my world. I can't even believe it. If I had to live my life over again, I'd exactly follow the same footsteps. I've had a remarkable life, all because I became a hairdresser. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, wow, what an amazing story and what an amazing journey. Did you always know ever, like what you were saying, even when you were just a tiny little wee boy, you knew you wanted to be a hairdresser?
Well, I think for a lot of people, and even Paul, he didn't want to be a hairdresser either. He wanted to be an actor. So whether you want to be a rock star, you want to be with Guns N' Roses or whoever it is you want to be, I think that hairdressing has a similar parallel. When I get on a plane, people think I'm a rock star. I dress like one. I live the lifestyle. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it. I don't think I knew it step by step, but you kind of know that there's something in every individual that's got a potential. And, I used to deliver pizza. I delivered pizza while I was going through beauty school. I had only come from Scotland about 3-4 months, went straight to beauty school. And I was delivering a pizza one night and I got robbed. And this guy came up with a gun, and I'd never seen a gun. And he pointed at my head, and I had a little rattle. And when I heard the rattle, I go, it's not a real gun. But anyway, he said, give me the pizza. I gave him the pizza. He said, give me your money. And I said, well, it's Domino's money. Here, take the money. Then he said something profound. He said, take your pants off. And I got very Scottish, very Braveheart on him. I said, hell no. And he hit me on top of the head with a Magnum 357, which made me realize the gun was real. And as I lay on the ground, with no pants on, 2 thoughts came to mind. One, start wearing underwear. And the second, that I was going to make beauty school pay off like no other individual that had ever went to school. I was going to honor my teachers, my learning leaders more than any other individual. I actually am still in touch with my learning leaders from school from 35 years ago. And they said, I knew the first day you were at school, you were going to do something magical with your career. I've just been very grateful. When I take pictures, long before there was an Instagram, I take thousands of pictures with hairdressers, because to me, when they say any time of the day, can I take a picture? And I was like, absolutely. And I've always got a smile on my face. It's an honor. I can't believe they want a photo. And that's why I love hairdressers so much, that we all have a similar background. We weren't we maybe didn't have a high IQ. And I'm not saying hairdressers aren't smart, but we have a high AQ. We understand people. I'm a servant to the people. I want to make people feel good. And I think that's something that we can really aspire to be. And I think, being touching people's hearts and souls is what this industry is about. Hair is exciting and all that stuff, but not every client wants a mohawk. Not every client's looking for rainbow hair. What they want is to be touched. What they want to do is to feel something. And I think that's the part that I sort of bring to a show. I'm a passionate hairdresser, and I do it all over the world in different languages. And they don't even understand what I'm saying, but they see through my actions. When I was in Israel, they said they'd never seen a guy smile on stage for 3 hours. Oh, wow. That's all I went for. It's about a passion and being grateful. So many people in my industry say, I love the industry. I said, well, tell your face, because the reality of loving it is right now all over your body. It's in every ounce of me. And I just really believe in the beauty industry because it gave me a chance. And when I think about people coming in from different backgrounds, what an opportunity, if you truly love people, that you can really go as far as you can imagine. And I can't say, when I think about my mother's story, that I imagined every detail of this. I was inspired to become a hairdresser from a colleague in Glasgow, Scotland. His name was Irvin Rusk. You probably never heard the name. You probably heard of the product line Rusk. Yeah. I was in a bar with my friends, and then came these guys all looking cool. They had overalls on, which we used to call dungarees back in Scotland. And they all looked really cool. They had cool hair. They had swagger. And I said, what are these guys doing? Somebody said, they're hairdressers. And I knew right then, that's what I want to be. Now, I was in another business. I was a cook, a chef, and doing different things. My family didn't support the idea. So when I moved to America at 24, I went straight to beauty school. Do not pass go. I went straight to a school, enrolled that day. And then the rest, in a sense, is history. So I should write a book one day. I'm gonna have to somebody to spell it for me, but I'm gonna write a book one day. Because I think people, I was so inspired by Paul when I would hear stories about him going to Japan and doing certain things. Your imaginarium would turn. And then later in life, I sort of follow in those footsteps. So, that's what mentorship is so important, having people to believe in and having mentors that maybe you never speak to, that you've never actually met. There's so many ways to study people from afar. And because I got involved in shows at a young age, not only did I do shows around the world, and I had to grow up because I wasn't always good. I was always funny and I was always passionate, which is what people cared about. But what I learned was going to see other people's shows and being a student of it and learning from remarkable people. From hearing a Vidal Sassoon speak, I would cry like a little baby in the audience because he was such a passionate speaker. I'd never seen the man cut hair. A lot of people had not. But when you hear how Vidal Sassoon spoke to an audience and how he could take a room of 6,000 to 7,000 people and you could hear a pin drop. I've been surrounded by incredible talent, people, and seeing different shows around the world. And from that, I've been able to pick knowledge from everyone, not really stealing ideas. If you take from a lot of people, It's called research. So I've researched really well through the experience of being at shows all over the country. First of all, the United States, becoming quite famous here, but eventually leading to a platform that became quite worldwide. People call me the George Clooney of hairdressing in Italy. That's how famous I am in Italy, because they do big shows there. So I've got a remarkable sort of viewpoint in different parts of it, but constantly learning. I also do a lot of coaching, and I work for Supercuts, Sport Clips. I work for Sola. I do so many things. So the way I work for these companies, they got to tell me stuff. So they got to tell me things about their corporation, their company. So I end up learning more than most individuals would do if they just had a salon. And I do have salons, and I do learn a lot from them, but I learned so much from the industry. I really believe in common knowledge and sharing ideas. And there's not an idea I've had that I've ever been worried about sharing. For an example, you know what a teasy highlight is?
Yes.
I invented that 25 years ago. And I don't get credit for it. Somebody said, how do you feel? You're ripped off. I don't feel that way. Vidal Sassoon changed an industry. He never felt ripped off on the word precision cutting. I invented another term that you've heard of called the color bar. I actually have it copywritten. Paul Mitchell and I own it. I come up with it in a salon, and every furniture company in the world has made millions of dollars out of making color bars. A lot of salons interpret them. Being a visionary means you're putting great information out there, and you're not looking for anything in return. Vidal was not looking for a paycheck at the end of inventing and changing a whole industry, and nor do I think like that. I just think that if I've got an idea that can help other people be successful, then it's my obligation to play that forward to the beauty industry. And I think because I am so grateful, I've always been a bit of a sharer and telling every single thing about everything. And not just, JP, my boss, says, success unshared is failure. I actually say failure unshared is failure, because if you have a failure and you had a walkout, you had something go wrong, sharing these ideas make people see, first of all, you're human, and the fact that I will share different things when I've made a mistake or had to close a salon. If it can happen to me, it can happen to you. And I just try to keep that honest factor. I'm able, because of the company I represent, to speak my mind. And I love that they let me speak from my heart every single time. And I think that's a beautiful part of being, part of the Paul Mitchell culture. And I always admire people who speak their mind, like Vidal did, like Irvin Russ did. And I got to see so many people on a platform that really had authority, and they came from a passionate place. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't a script. And there's nothing wrong with that. I believe in scripting when it comes to the salon, and a great consultation. When I build a show, it's got a script and a structure, but when you see me do it, you'll never recognize it, because structure increases learning. So I do believe in structure in so many ways, but what I look for, even right down to a presidential candidate, when I heard Obama speak, I'm like, make that guy president. Even when I heard Bill Clinton, I don't know what to say about the current one. But the reality is, I just think there's something about authentic communication. I'm a very good guy at doing it. And what makes me so good, I think I've just had hours of practice. I'm on a platform more than most people in the world. When I was a young kid, long before I got on stage, I used to do 30 or 40 classes a month in my neighborhood. So to be a prophet in your own land is one of the toughest. The definition of platform artist is usually hairdresser from out of town. And for me, I wanted to take exception to that. So I just think that I own salons to validate the stories I want to tell, to talk about success, not coming from my chair, but people who work with me. These are sometimes stylists that came and lived in their car to get a job with me, and now they're making six figures. I love to tell other people's stories. And, I think that's a big part of what I get to do and why I own a salon. Everybody's got to have a why. Some hairdressers open a salon, they think it's a rite of passage. Check your why. Not everybody should have their own salon. Not everybody's qualified to be an owner. Some people are better working for a guy. It's why I don't have a product line. I feel much more comfortable working for Paul Mitchell. I didn't ever want a bottle of shampoo with my name on. I once had a pair of panties we used at shows that had my face on it. That was fun. But I've never had the desire to have my own particular brand. I get to do that as a salon. And I just say, to me, I'm part of the beauty industry, and I'm lucky enough to be considered an icon. I think that's because I'm older. But the reality is here, I just believe in hairdressers, and I think they need to be inspired every day. And that inspiration is what brings them to the next level. And I think, that's what I'm the most proud about in my career over the last 35 years.
Yeah, wow, you just packed so much great information, and everybody I know right now is just listening as closely as possible, because you are very much like what you're saying about Vidal Sassoon, and you listen, you know, the pin drop. Everybody does exactly that same thing with you. We want to hear everything that you have to say, your failures, your successes, absolutely everything. So for you to just share all this information with us is huge. And so I really appreciate you doing that with us. The other thing that I love that you said was check your why, because that is really, really big. I think especially in our industry, people start to maybe get like envious, right? Like of other people, like what you're saying, maybe like you could have wanted to do what your boss does, you know, but you decided that's not your why, that's not your reason. And so I love that there's no ego there. So yeah.
Well, I love this conversation already, and I want to get you involved in it. Sometimes I get a little talky. Some people interview me and they're like, I had a lot of questions, but you covered them all. But, you know, I want to get involved. And I love that, you know, as much as we're going through a crisis in the industry, you know, the industry we inherited, before Vidal Sassoon, people in our industry used to do 16, 17 heads of hair a day in roller sets. And Vidal came along and switched the mechanism. Through this crisis, I believe in this: fewer clients, more meaning. The best hairdressers in the world have beautiful clientels, but sometimes we're stacking and packing. We've been in a race and not looking at the pace. So to me right now, the message that we're delivering around the world is fewer clients, more meaning. Imagine if you had an hour just with your hairdresser, the opportunity to sell products, to give them upgraded services, to give them a great shampoo, to have a listening ear. I think this is a great time for change in our industry. So not working so much on the volume of it, but working on each and every guest making a difference. And I think that there's so many things to learn from a crisis. And for me, we're going through it in so many ways. Forget the sanitary parts. The government will help us comply with that. But as an example, in our salons with our system, it's called Weave. It's a phone system. We already have curbside waiting. So we already see a whole new world where we're going to change the pace of the business and really have fewer clients with more meaning, which I think will change our whole financial plan, that we no longer need 200 guests, that we could work off of 60, depending if you're full-time or part-time, 100 people who love you, giving them great service because you're not rushing to get the next one. Hairdressers often don't get lunch, and the reason being we're so double booked, triple booked. And often when you're triple booked, you're not listening to the client, you don't remember her name, you're not giving her a sexy shampoo. I call it sex in the sinky, who's your daddy? We sort of suck because of the pace we've adapted. So when Vidal changed our pace the first time with precision haircutting, I think this crisis is going to help us change pace again so that we can have more quality time with each and every guest. I have a client I talk about all the time. Her name is Trudy. She's 75, retired school teacher. And because we're Instagram high heavy, I said, we're going to take you over to the ring light, Trudy, and take your picture. You know what she said to me, Colie? Nobody ever takes my picture. See, it's about the heart. It's about the love of what we do. And I think by slowing it down, we're actually going to become better at doing what we did. And I think that's a beautiful thing to see happening from this terrible crisis, but it gives us a reset, a new pivot, if you will. And we're so excited to get back to work as we go. We have a salon in Oklahoma reopening on the 1st. We're working every day through technology. I'm closer to my team than ever. Somebody asked me recently, what have you learned through this crisis? I learned maybe I was a sucky owner, that I sucked at it, because as much as I go to work and I was around the team, we're having a Zoom meeting tonight. We've had cocktail parties on Zoom. We've had trainings. Last week was my birthday. Everybody dressed up as a version of me over the decades. It was absolutely hilarious. But while we're doing the Zoom, I'm looking into your living room right now. I can see your beautiful house. I can tell your taste level. I'm seeing some of my staff holding their babies, petting their dogs, cooking dinner. I feel closer to my team than I ever have before. And I think that we're realizing that technology can really get us so close together, and things like this go on forever, like a beautiful movie on Netflix. So why I love about this common knowledge, it's not just an episode and it's over. There's so much to gain from it. So I just think there's such an optimism coming from the beauty industry. We had a reason to change, but we've been so busy in the pace of things, never get time to catch up, that this has given us a whole new window to regroup, to reset. We're calling it ready, set, go. Just like a race, if you will, but, really focusing on what the next chapter is, but changing not just the business model, but changing our lives. I did an interview the other day. The guy said, I haven't spent 5 weeks with my children ever.
Right.
Shame on all of us. So I'm just saying it's time to prioritize having a work life and having a lifestyle with your children, or whether you're an educator. It's finding the perfect lifestyle as a hairdresser, not just working 6 and 7 days a week to where you start to not like people. I think the pace got us to where we felt we were making donuts and never taking the time to really listen to a client. Half the hairdressers in the world don't even know a client's first name. Starbucks built an empire on coffee by saying, hey, Robert, your Frappuccino's ready. And I push people out the way to go up and get my coffee. I feel quite famous right there. And we're not even taking the time to get a client's name. The most important thing they can ever hear is their name. And I just think that it's very important that we slow it down and just become the beautiful service providers that we want to be, touching people's hearts and souls and making a difference one guest at a time. That's how you build a business, whether you're an independent contractor, a freelancer, you're part of a team. I don't really care. It all boils down to what's sitting in your chair. And I think that we have so much in common from that, not how we're paid. That doesn't change who we are. What really makes us the same is that one guest at a time. That's all we can all do. And I think right now you're going to see the benefit of this as it turns into the next level of the industry. We are going to see a change just like Vidal Sassoon changed it many years ago before even some of us were alive. But I think about him often. He was a very good friend of mine, as it turned out. I'm not Sassoon trained, but he used to love to watch me on stage. And he actually told me after a show in Chicago once, he said, come here, young man. I said, yes. He said, you're the best I ever seen on stage. You're the ultimate showman. And he said, not just your hands, Robert. He said, it's your words. And I told him right to his little face, I said, that's good. I'm after your old job. He had such an effect on me as so many other people did. But he's one that you just got to understand was the most beautiful man in the world. And, you know, this may be something your listeners don't know. When Vidal wanted to be a hairdresser, he had the worst accent in the world. His English was very East Side London, so it's called Cockney. It's kind of like such a dialogue that you almost can't recognize. If you were American, you're like, what did he say? He knew that to be Vidal Sassoon, he had to change his dialogue. He went to acting classes to get this beautiful diction, that vocabulary, that way of saying stuff. He was also an iconic swimmer. Now, not a gold medalist, but he loved to swim. He loved to swim because he could gather his thoughts and he could focus on his breathing, a form of meditation. He was one of the most remarkable men our industry's ever seen. And the fact that I got to interview him on many occasions, that he would come to shows. I've had a few drinks and sat in his lap. Not many people can say they've sat in Vidal Sassoon's lap. But he had such an effect on me. And when I would get around him, I just turned into mush. When I would see him coming close to me. I was once standing with him and somebody come up at a show in Chicago or New York and asked if he would take a picture of me and them. I said, this is Vidal Sassoon, you crazy person. So I also think what the industry needs is to understand where we all come from. I'm a bit of a historian about it. You know, before Sassoonism, there was Gibson girls. Do you know what a Gibson girl is? It was really, the world was full of illustrations of women with long hair. And then came a movement in the 1920s called flapper girls. And these girls cut their hair, they smoked in public. Nowadays, they'd be vaping. They were revolutionaries of a type. So what I love about really paying attention to the beauty industry is there's been such a journey. And the great thing is there's been so many things that have happened over the different years. But I just love what I get to learn because people often want to tell me stuff that they wouldn't tell other people, including Vidal Sassoon. But, you know, that's the beauty of it. And I think a lot of people are like me. They're grateful. They'll talk to anybody because we're so passionate about what we do. You know, we'll talk to strangers about it. It doesn't really differential whether you're in the industry or not. I do seminars so often around the world and people say to me, I'm inspired and I'm not even in the hair industry. I'm a plumber. You know, I'm in a whole different industry. And when they hear me speak, they go, you could do this anywhere because being passionate at what you do is critical in anywhere you go, you know. So whether I'm going to having a dining experience or anywhere, I want to be around passionate people. And just because I cut hair is not the differential. You can learn from so many other industries. You know, I've loved some of the commercials on TV right now. I don't know if you've seen them, but Domino's did a whole recruitment thing on hiring people. Domino's never have done anything on hiring. I love the Uber commercial. We show everybody at home doing stuff. They're making puzzles, they're playing with the kids. And then the last tag on Uber said, thank you for not driving with us. There's so many things you can learn. It's about putting on your kind of Salvador Dali eye and looking for things other people don't see. And I've kind of got that creative ability that I can look at things that normally people wouldn't think pertain to our industry and find values in which to bring back and apply to our business. When I mentioned the weave system, it's a system that was developed for medical use. It was how dentist office operate. And, you know, they're even giving us the safety features of the 10 ways we can keep a client safe. And I just love the fact that you can look into other industries to learn, not just from the beauty industry. So as far as the ideas we need, they're everywhere. We just got to look a little harder to find them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to see here, we have some people on here. Let me see if anybody, I'm getting a lot of people excited, saying that they're so excited that you're here. Let's see, no questions. Okay. Love your hair. That's what they said. Love your hat. Yeah. So, okay. So my question for you, actually, I'm going to let these guys go. What I'm going to do is you guys can check this out on the podcast. Also, this is being recorded, so it's going to be on YouTube as well. So thank you guys for joining us. All right. So that's done. But what questions I actually have for you is what type of things, I'm sorry about that. What type of, okay, so what is success to you is the question that I have. If somebody says to you that they feel successful, what is success to you personally?
I think success in my mind is defining your lifestyle. It's not dollar bills,
Yeah.
you know. It really has nothing to do with dollar bills. Success for so many people. I have so many working mothers in my organization. I'm sure they're not thinking, well, look at my paycheck, that defines me. It's not about things. It's not about a car. I think we all know that right now. I invest all my stuff in clothes and costumes. I don't have a car. I drive my wife's car. To me, success is really living the lifestyle that you want. And that's different for everybody who's listening here. So whether you're an editor in a magazine, whether you're, whatever it is you do, it's really defining it through what's the ultimate lifestyle, and not always is about the paycheck. If you're living a happy life and you're doing all the things you want to do, it's not monetary, that's for sure. And it's definitely not fame. This disease hurt lots of people, and just because you're famous, you weren't immune. Ask Tom Hanks. It's not about fame. So I've never really done this for the fame. The fact that people do get excited when they recognize me, that's just a beautiful blessing. But to me, I never did. My motivation wasn't to become famous. Sometimes they talk about the Instagrammers, Insta famous. That's not what drove me to the world. What drove me was just my passion and the fact that I wanted to share that. So I think success has got to be defined by what's important to you. And Robert Cromeans can't tell you what your success would be. You got to paint that own picture. And I think that's something people need to understand. And especially for hairdressers that had traditionally worked too hard, do too many things in life. And I'm just saying what's most important is your family, your children, being around the people who support you. And if you can carve out a living there that helps support that, because if you live in Idaho, you don't need $1 million house. You could make $40,000 and live like a king. So I just think that there's so many ways it could be interpreted. And to me, it's about being happy is the most important thing. And, having that longevity in life. And I think it's really critical. So, the success part, I think, is different understood in the business world. But I would just say for me, my best friend, John Paul, is one of the most successful billionaires in the world. And yet you would never know it. Sometimes you'll see him in a bar or a restaurant when we're out doing shows in Hawaii. He looks like a homeless guy. I hope he doesn't watch this episode. You would never imagine that he just sold a company called Patron for $5 billion. And yet to see him, he's just the most humble guy in the world. When I travel with him, he grabs my bag. I was once in Mallorca with him, and I'm kind of white skinned because I'm Scottish. And we went to the poolside to kind of hang out before we went to the model call on the show. And he started putting suntan lotion on my back. A little creepy, but he's just a beautiful genius guy that has a humble spirit. And he's not walking around like he's the Howard Hughes of the world. Look what I got. Look what I got. You wouldn't know that he had 2 pennies to rub together. So success can be so many ways. And even though he's got a bundle of cash, that's not what defines him. His definition is really being able to give back to the planet, the philanthropic things he does, the things he does for people all over the world. We raise, could be through our schools and other things, anywhere from $30 million a year we give to charity, all because JP can't believe it. He was homeless at 48.
Yeah.
He used to live in his car.
Yeah,
So it's just, he's a profound individual. And of course I would work for a guy like that because I gravitate towards these remarkable people. And when I took the job at Paul Mitchell, never to ask what they were going to pay me. And today I'm not allowed to tell you what they pay me, but I did not get into the job based on dollars. I got in to make a difference. And I'm just saying how you define success could be everything. If you're, even for people going through this crisis, some salons will close because you didn't have a reason to before, but now you have an out. Because a lot of you were just going to keep going, following that path, definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And for those people that do get out of the industry, I love you still, because you had a chance to change your life, to get to what makes you happy. There's no point in running a business if you can't be successful. I've been watching on the internet, some of the barbershops closing down, different people around the world. This could be an exciting thing too. Fewer salons, more meaning. So I think there's a huge interesting switch here happening, because the world is resettling and people, some cases, may not go back to work. I have a stylist in my company. Her name's Anya. Her husband's in the medical field. So as a result, with her kids at home, she's chosen as my top stylist not to come back to work. So for certain people in the business world, I've got maybe 20 applications right now through the internet of people applying for work. So not only am I, when I go back to work, I'm going to start again, I'm going to advertise. We're going to create wow ads to get people into our company. We see it as a time to rebuild and recruit, because hairdressers will become in demand. And when you think about demand, if a Mercedes-Benz is in demand, it costs more. If an airline ticket is in demand, it costs more. Going to Hawaii in the summer is much more expensive than it is in January. And here's an opposite of that. Gas prices. I don't know where you live, Colie. There's one of my friends in one of the cities, $1 a gas, $1 a gallon. Never have you seen such a thing, because it's not in demand. So when you're not in demand, this is the going rate. But when you're in demand, this is a game changer. So as we slow down, it's also slowing down and increasing the price. So if I'm going to see less clients, I don't need to be working on a small number, to using volume to catch up. Fewer clients, more meaning. Starting to think of ourselves almost like the way the spa industry thinks about itself. I want a 60-minute massage. I want an hour-and-a-half massage. The best retailers in our industry are estheticians, because they slow it down to an hour appointment. They've got everything methodically worked out. And because of that, they're incredible retail artists. So I just think it's a whole time to take a step back, slow down the pace, and then figure out what lifestyle is the best for you. Some of you are working 4 days a week, 5 days a week. What would it mean for you to work 3 days and spend 4 more days with your family? Find the lifestyle. That to me is the absolute definition of success. JP has it, but happens to have money in the bank. It would be the same if he had nothing. I think he'd still be the same remarkable guy. He's a hippie kind of guy. You know, we have a farm in Hawaii. 40 years ago, Paul started it. It's a solar farm. And that's long before there was a Prius, long before any technology in the world had been talked about. That's what was important to Paul and JP. They were kind of hippies, renegade hippies that wanted to make a difference in the world. And whenever you ran into JP or Paul, they were the most grateful people in the world, because their dream went beyond their imagination. And all they really wanted was a perfect little lifestyle, living on this little place in Hawaii on a solar off the grid farm that no matter what happened to them, they could live and eat off the land. That was the lifestyle they expected. They didn't quite know that Paul Mitchell would go so big and have such an imprint. And not just the product company. We have 116 schools around the world. We're graduating 16,000 future professionals a year. Paul is no longer on the planet, but I know he's looking down going, wow, look at the impact for every kid in school. And my job, because I do a lot of distant learning with the schools right now, is to rip their heart out like Paul did to me, to make them see a dream beyond their imagination. Because I'll tell you this to be true, Colie. When I went to beauty school, I told my mother, she said, son, do you have something else to tell me? I'm like, what do you mean? My dad was a dentist. I said, I'm going to be a hairdresser. He said, there's no money in that. He was wrong. So I love defying my friends. I love defying my family, but I'm just saying this is an industry that if you're a believer, and to be a believer, you got to be gullible. To be a visionary, you got to be a little gullible. So don't work on factualization. If you can dream it, you can make it happen. That's what Paul Mitchell taught me. That's what JP teaches me every day. To me, it's what Vidal taught. If you can imagine it in your mind, don't be put up by what other people say. This is an industry you can achieve almost anything. And I don't think there's any limitation to what we do as people.
Wow. Oh my gosh, you are just blowing my mind.
And this is decaf.
Yeah. Yeah. Really though, I mean, I can't imagine, all the things that you've told me today are just absolutely amazing, and they're going to help so many people. And people listening right now, I know a big question that people wanted me to ask you is, what advice would you give to somebody who would want to be in your shoes where you are right now?
Well, get some fancy duds. You know, I did a thing yesterday. I did an interview and I took my hat off, and somebody on the internet said, so you look so much more handsome without a hat on. Sometimes the things people will say on the internet drive me a little crazy. It's fine to think negative shit. Just don't write it on my page. You know, somebody said, oh, he's looking old. Well, I'm 58 years old. I'm getting old. But I just think that it's the kind of white light to it. But to get a start in the beginning, Paul Mitchell spoke to my heart. So I was already engaged with them long before they even knew who I was. I was already thinking of these things. So first of all, find a company that speaks to your heart. You're not looking to be headhunted here. You're not looking for something, oh, I got a company, you should come work for me. You've really got to seek that out like your life partner. So when a company speaks to you, then you'll probably be the most effective, not just taking the job because they had a help wanted. So that's the key. The other thing is, you know, if you're going to do it, just like I talked about my 30, 40 classes a month, these were just $30 a day classes. People would come see me. It'd be 6 people, usually 6 people, 4 didn't want to be there. You know, this is how you get the road work in to become a great educator. You know, I love the Instagram world. I'm friends with so many of the big top Instagrammers. I don't think I knew who they were at first. I don't think they knew who I was at first, but I see such value. And what they did is they created their own platform. So in the old days, you needed permission. These days, if you've got the desire and you want to be heard, you just got to plug in your cell phone and go to work. So when I think of like Larissa Dahl, what an incredible person. Maddie Conrad, love Maddie. And again, these guys don't work with Paul Mitchell, but I have such love. Guy Tang, you know, I'm sure, and if you ask Guy this question, the first hair show he ever seen was me and Stephanie on stage. The first colorful hair he ever seen on a stage was us. I've had such an impact like we now had on me and so many of these people. Hair God Zito, no shame in his title, Hair God Zito. I'd be Hair Dog Bob. But the reality of him, he would watch in our shows, hang on our audiences, and to see them taking this platform level, nobody can hold you back right now. If you've got good content, you believe, you're honest, you're giving people great, you know, organic information, you can become an educator right now from your living room. You can start making a difference. And let me put you clear, it's not about having 1 million views on TikTok. Fern the barber is one of my favorites. He's one of ours. He's one of the most famous barbers, got about 380,000 followers. He started off in beauty school. He was a Paul Mitchell graduate. Then he became a learning leader. He then decided to go into barbering. He's also a wicked female hair cutter. I use him on shows all over the world. But he had a little downtime. And every time he didn't have a client, he would cut a doll head. And every time he was kind of out of business, he'd cut another doll head. This last few weeks of the crisis, every day he's on Instagram doing another doll head. The work is impeccable. But what I love about Fernie is one of the comments come into his box said, you keep this up, buddy. One day you'll be on stage with Robert Cromeans. And today he's on stage quite often with Robert Cromeans. The way you want to say, you don't need permission from anybody. You can start making those differences. And I say, I love what I've learned from the Instagram world. I love that they've accepted me. And even though I'm an older guy, I play on that world. I love to be able to have a platform for my living room. And I really admire the industry more. And I think the industry is more transparent right now than it's ever been. To see a Paul Mitchell back in the day, you had to go to a show. And now because of the transparency, my son's a hairdresser now, I'm able to show him people around the world of things he could emulate and be inspired by. And I just love it as a platform right now because the transparency of the industry says, wow, I didn't know I had all these avenues. I could be an editorial artist. I could be a salesperson. I could be doing shows. I could be an educator. Or I could be a beautiful hairdresser just behind the chair taking care of my guests. The opportunity is unbelievable. And through this transparency, you're seeing these different walks of life, which I just think is fascinating. And as I say, I love, you know, the networks we get to work in, but I love the beauty industry. A lot of the older guys there, they have a little war with the Instagrammers, you know, everybody hates each other. That's not smart. Let's be in love with one another, see each other's values. And I think that's where people grow the furthest. It's not being judgmental. Keep your opinions. Somebody said to me once, I love you, Robert Cromeans, but what's up? You're a hairdresser that wears a hat. I said, if I was a proctologist, I'd wear pants. I mean, let's be honest with you. Judgment is unnecessary. And sometimes what gets me a little mad on the internet is just some of the stuff people will say. And I had a guy said to me once some terrible things. I go on his page on Facebook and I see him with his son. So I responded like this, Colie. I said, as fathers, I think it's important we lead by example. He became my #1 fan. He comes to shows. So I would never be in Robert Cromeans right back negative stuff, but there are ways to higher ground it. And I, you know, last week somebody said, oh, I seen this technique 20 years ago. I said, I'm going to follow you and perhaps I can learn new things. So I'm always polite. I've always got a smile on my face. And I think everybody could learn from this. My wife called it something because you're in, you know, you're hidden. You think you can make these comments. I don't often read the comments section, especially if it's a haircut that went 1 million views. Some of the negativity hurts my little heart, and I'm a tough guy. And the fact that I see something written, it's different from somebody telling you something to your face. Once it's written, it hurts your soul. So I choose not to read the feed on some things I do that are quite controversial. I'll ask somebody this, what did you like about it? Well, I liked it when you were finished. I'm happy with that. But the reality is I don't want to hear every opinion. I don't think everybody has the right, because it has an effect when it's written in print. It hurts people's hearts. And I can just speak from my own experience. My little heart sinks when I see negativity. And I want to defend people who get negativity on their page. Opinions are like bums. Everybody has one. I just think sometimes keep it to yourself, especially right now while things are going through this dynamic change. Now's the time to give love and white light. And if you do see something negative, it's not your job to respond to it. It's not your job to police it or give your opinion. I think you can give love if you want, and you can choose to switch off if you don't want. But everybody's opinion sometimes gets me angry as a hairdresser that's part of the beauty industry for the last 35 years. So on this podcast, I only want love hearts and love.
Honestly, that's all I'm willing to accept. On our podcast, we specifically choose people who we know will add value to our listeners, but also, to the industry in general. We want to know about real things. And so it's not like that. We would never accept something like that. Yeah. But Robert, you've been such a blessing really to the industry. I'm so glad that you've showed up in your life and you were able to influence and inspire so many people. And I'm so thankful for you. And I know so many other people are. So I realize that time is so valuable. So I am so excited that you're here with us today. And thank you for sharing your time with me.
My pleasure. What I would say to your audience right now, one of my favorite analogies, which I borrowed from Matthew McConaughey. He is not a friend of mine, but I did sort of introduce him to his wife. She was on a photo shoot. I used her 2 times and they were both in the same studio, and that's where they met. So he talked about the world sitting at a red light, waiting for it to turn green. And what I want to tell people here, and I think you've all done this, you're sitting in traffic, the light's red, you're getting impatient, is it ever going to turn green? And then you start getting busy looking at your phone, heaven forbid, or putting on your lipstick, and then the guy behind you honks the horn, meaning you're not ready. It's about getting ready, set to go. We have a chance to re-strategize, to re-pivot, to rethink your thoughts, pay attention out there to the beauty industry. As I say, go to my page, my wife's page. I did a beautiful poem. I've never wrote poetry about the cat of the hat. A poem about staying home. I've done cooking shows live. We've been doing all this incredible stuff. So I just say, look at some of my pages. I'll give you some of the details of the strategies that we're using to go back into business. And I think that's the greatest part right now about this particular media front, that we can do these great things, but this light will turn green. And what I'm suggesting to the whole beauty industry, what are you going to do to be different when we go back to work? Because business will not be usual. The new norm will be absolutely different, but it's not a bad thing. It's probably the thing that will set you free as hairdressers. I know that that's what I look forward to for myself and especially my team. I feel a hunger from them that I couldn't feel before. Before this crisis, to get people to come to a class, I had to blackmail them with bagels and a food truck. To do education, people resisted. Right now, I've never seen an industry hungrier. I've never felt my team more aligned to the vision. And if you are an owner, you've got to take that visionary role. You've got to show leadership right now, because if you don't show leadership right now, 70% of the world in hairdressing is independent. And what I say to the people that run team salons, 70% of the world would rather work alone than work for you. And listen to what that means. That just means maybe you're not the leader you thought you were. And just because you built a pretty salon doesn't mean that's a reason to work here. And I just think that people need a lifestyle. We got to be more flexible. We got to communicate more. We got to build transparent businesses so that people know what they're getting into and what the rules are and what the money and the compensation is. And I think that's a message we can all learn. And I'm just saying, I needed this pause as much as anybody else. And I look forward to going back to business and also sharing with the world the best practices that we will be using around the globe, because we have countries that we do business with that are already opening up, states right now that are already opening up, and we're going to filter all those practices to the world, regardless whether they're a Paul Mitchell customer. I don't care who you buy from. Our obligation, just like Vidal Sassoon, is to change an industry and change how it thinks about itself. So Colie, I want to thank you, my darling. And you absolutely look delightful. I love your house. We'll come by and visit. Where do you live?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Wow. I don't get out there much, but when I am there, we're going to definitely have dinner at your house. That's an invitation I gave myself.
That sounds great.
My wife and I will come over and we can have a little, we've actually been doing Zoom cocktail hours. I did one last week, a few weeks ago with Angus Mitchell. and his beautiful wife, Mara. I did one with 3 couples last week, and it was Fern the barber. And me and Angus been drinking a bit, and I could see Fernie slipping off the screen. He couldn't keep up with the old guys. But beautiful thing. I had a birthday party last week. I told you the team dressed up, and afterwards I got online. It's a surprise party. My wife surprised me with 30 or 40 of my best friends around the world. And I'm just saying the distance, it's not social distance, it's physical distance. And right now I want to hug every single person in the world, and I can't wait to do that. Also, I've been wearing masks and stuff. I've obviously done a show already wearing a mask. I love clothes anyway, and I love it, you know, just being able to do things. I can't wait to see when we get back to work, and especially what a hair show is going to look like after this, and you know, which way we're going to celebrate. But I think everybody's going to not take it for granted anymore. We're not going to take our families for granted, our guests for granted, and the fact that we get to go to see a show or people at a show. I think there's going to be a whole new level of respect for everybody in the industry. And I just thank you for giving me the invitation today. It matters to me so much.
Oh, wow. You've been such a joy and such a pleasure. Yeah, you're more than welcome. And thank you so much for being here.
All right, I'll see you for dinner soon.